Um, Thanks for joining me this afternoon, DC.
No problem at all.
Great to see you. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your involvement with the creative arts?
Yeah, well, my name is DC Chemics, and I am a novelist and writer of all things science fiction, fantasy, anything weird and wonderful and speculative. I try my hand at. So that's, yeah, I suppose that's it. Yeah.
So these do you have where are these set? Do you create worlds, or is it kind of science fiction? What kind? Because I'm quite interested in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, ideas I've had a span across. I've different worlds and stuff, but the things that I've focused on writing and publishing in the last few years, they're all set on Earth, but they all kind of take a bit of a departure in terms of reality. My first anthology, it's all set on Earth, but actually, no, sorry, no, one isn't. One's set in a computer program. But yeah, I like to. I've not departed too far away from Earth yet, but I've tried to make Earth as strange and weird and wonderful as possible. So, but yeah, I definitely plan on doing some kind of high fantasy Lord of the Rings style thing set on some distant world where everything's upside down or made of jelly or something like that. But right now I'm on Earth for the time being.
Oh, great! I've made notes. Tends to be my favorite kind of science fiction. It's kind of a way of analyzing the human race by bringing in the element of aliens or something a bit strange and imagining how that would affect us. Although I don't think we've had to do much imagining this year, have we?
No, yeah, it's been pretty apocalyptic so far, hasn't it? I've heard a lot of people say that word as well, apocalyptic, end of the world. So yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe the end of the world, beginning of a different world, because I'm not sure that we could have just kept bambling on as we were for too much longer without it, well, not being there, but maybe the end of quite large chunks of humanity.
Yeah.
Because that's it. It's like, it really would take a lot. It would be very difficult for us to destroy the planet. We're only ever going to destroy ourselves. So I think.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
take some heart from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the universe itself is pretty indifferent towards humanity, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. They realize they think because their universe is usually the center of the universe. I think people sometimes don't take note of the fact that we are essentially a speck of dust floating around in a large vacuum, and
we are in space.
Yeah, absolutely. We are a bunch of talking monkeys on a big spaceship made of dirt, and we're flying through a big empty space, and we have no idea where we're going. Yeah, we have this uncanny ability to convince ourselves that everything is fine, but yeah, it's been slightly. I've got to admit, as someone who likes to imagine doomsday scenarios and these weird situations for the sake of art and writing, there has been an element of excitement to this whole pandemic, this radical change in everyone's lives, and I'd be lying if I said there weren't parts of it that excited me slightly. Obviously, it's a terrible thing, and the effects of the virus is something I wouldn't wish on anyone. But yeah, there is a part of me that's like, I remember because actually my day job is working at a hospital, and I'm quite versed in gowning up in all kinds of hazmat suits and stuff to go on to certain wards. And I remember the first time I actually had to gown. It was when the virus started to take it started to become pretty serious. And I remember having to fully gown up in this like Breaking Bad style kind of get up for the first time. And I can remember feeling so nervous, and I can remember being quite scared, even though I was just walking into a room with this lovely old lady to take a dinner order. I had to gown up and I did feel a hint a smattering of excitement at this whole kind of suiting up. So yeah, there's been that, which has been quite hard because, you know, you kind of think, well, what's the matter with you? Why are you feeling? Why is there a novelty to this to you? But yeah, that's been interesting to process, definitely.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think from my perspective, it's like, you know, again, it's like thinking that Earth's the center of the universe. People thinking that the country they live in is how it is for everybody. And really, I mean, I think why it's been such a shock to a system in some of the more developed Western economies is because life has seemed so stable here. You know, the Second World War is nearly out of living memory now. People have just imagined that it's, you know, that life just carries on and no major events happens. And but you just think, you know, people in other countries around the world that live with, like, you know, in that have perpetual wars, that have civil unrest, have upheavals, their lives have never been, you know, they never have imagined that it would be ever and unchanging. And so I think that's maybe why it's been such a shock to the Western psyche.
Yeah.
We digress. We haven't even got into the question.
It's okay. That's all right.
So have you always written? Did you come from a creative background? How did that all happen for you and when?
No, I've not always been a writer. My writing journey started, I would say, about 2010. So about 11 years ago, when I went to university. I did film and television production at the University of Cumbria, all the way in Carlisle. And my original dream was to be like a writer director and a filmmaker. In fact, I fancied myself as the next Tarantino, if I'm being quite honest with you. And then once university got kind of finished with, and I tried to kick off a career in film and television production, and it did, long story short, it didn't work, didn't pan out. But I realized after a while that what I wanted from a creative career and wasn't achieving through trying to get my quote unquote foot in the door with production. I realized that being a writer is the most direct route to what I wanted to achieve. What I wanted was to be directly, I didn't want to, I wanted to create the story. I wanted to be in that fictional world, be it a faraway galaxy or a castle 3,000 years in the past or whatever. I wanted to be there. I didn't want to fanny on with making people coffee or holding a boom mic for 10 years, which, don't get me wrong, I would have done if I was successful at it. But I realized that the route I was initially trying to take wasn't necessarily the route that was best for me, because I know people that have been in the industry for coming on 6 years now following uni, and don't get me wrong, they're very talented people, but it's still very much holding cameras and stuff like that. And I realized that wasn't really what I wanted to do. That's not really how I wanted to cut my teeth. So when I rediscovered writing in a big way, in around about 2013, when I fully kind of went, right, I'm a writer, that's when I kind of went headfirst into being it started off as writing scripts, but then I thought, well, writing novels as well is something that I would really like to get my teeth stuck into. I'm not from a creative family at all. My mum is a foster carer. My dad's a security guard. I think my closest relative who did anything remotely creative was, I think, my great grandfather, who was a trumpet player. But yeah, no, pretty normal kind of lower class upbringing. So I grew up in Newtown in Stockton until I was about 25, and then we moved to Salters Lane in Hardwick. So I'm not quite sure where I got the need to be creative from. If I was to guess, it would be because I would put it down to sheer escapism. You know, I don't have a particularly exciting upbringing. I didn't grow up in a particularly exciting place. But I always loved the idea of elsewhere, these faraway lands and these kind of worlds that are not like ours. And I remember I used to be obsessed with watching television, and I would watch, you know, cartoons and stuff, and I would prefer that to playing outside, because from my perspective, the looking at these wonderful, crazy worlds from this magical window in my living room was far better than going outside and throwing stones at pigeons and walking around the same estate for the 30th time in a row. I just really preferred being elsewhere. And I think that's continued way into my 30s now. But now I have this channel that is writing and making my worlds somehow real in a way.
Brilliant. So you covered quite a few of my questions there, which is...
Oh, right.
No, that's great. I mean, I'd much rather just let you talk. So do you still have ambitions to make a career out of the arts, or are you happy now with the balance that you have with sort of having a job where you earn money and like writing in your spare time? Is that something you hope to progress?
Yeah, I'm definitely not happy with the balance. No, my dream is to be professional writer who I would love that to be my job. I don't like my current job. I'm pretty cantankerous when it comes to talking about the job, but no, I very much want to be a full-time novelist writer. I just recently I took about 10 days off to finish my novel, actually, and for about a week I just completely existed for writing the novel. I would wake up in the morning, I'd go for a walk, I'd come home, and my novel would be my work. And I was so happy in this. You could maybe argue it's a bit of an illusion. You know, I kind of pretended I was a full-time novelist, and I'm just coming out of that 10-day experience now, and it was awesome. It cemented that that's what I want to do. So yeah, definitely that's my career ambition. But I do have, you know, there are other things that take up my time. You know, my current, you know, my part-time job for money. I'm also working on a career as a therapist as well, a psychotherapeutic counselor, which you know, it would be a job I would enjoy, but it's definitely a plan B. It's definitely, although actually my friend came up with a much nicer term than plan B, and he said it's more like a parallel plan A. You know, it's something that I kind of pursue, and it's something that would be quite intellectually stimulating, quite rewarding in its way, but ultimately, you know, and it's something that if I was to never be able to become full-time as a novelist, touch wood, that would suffice, that would be okay. But as far as my plans go, I plan to pursue as much of a writing career as I possibly can, whether that's under my own fuel as a self-published author, or whether or not someone kind of reads one of my manuscripts and goes, "Oh, that's cool, have some money," you know, write that for us, you know. So I'm pretty comfortable in my pursuit of the dream, I suppose.
Do you send stuff out? Have you approached publishers?
I have in the past, yeah. I will admit I am absolutely terrible at that. The volume at which one would have to send out stuff is not the volume at which I do it, which is definitely something I'm planning to remedy come 2021. But mostly I haven't really had anything completed in such a volume as a novel. Obviously I've written countless spec scripts, and I've sent them around, and I've, you know, drummed up a little bit of momentum with certain ones, and you know, and I recently wrote a novella that I kind of knew, you know, wouldn't really get anywhere if I was to merely send it around. So then that's when I dabbled in self-publishing. So that's on Amazon now. But now that I have this completed draft of a full novel, you know, that's definitely something I'm going to be like, you know, handing around. Read this. But yeah, so that will hopefully change in the next year, definitely.
Amazing. Well, I mean, I really wish you luck with it. I went to Teesside Uni and studied creative writing. I felt really liberated as a writer to make the decision during that time that I'm never going to try and write a novel. I think when you're young and you want to be a writer, it always seems to be like you think that being a writer means you've got to write a novel. And I felt such a huge weight lift off my shoulders.
Yeah.
Thought to myself, no, I'm just not going to do it. It's a bit beyond me. So I just think it's a brilliant achievement. I'm really glad that you've been able to take that time off to off. Must feel incredible.
It's incredible. I'm severely depressed. I have to go back to work now. You know, at the beginning of it, I would kind of sit and think, oh, I've got 9 days left. I don't have to worry about going into work or doing anything other than writing. But now it's like, oh, I'm in tomorrow at 9 a.m. And, you know, woe is me, obviously. But yeah, it's a bit of a bummer. But I'm just looking forward to the next time I can bum work off and write, you know.
Absolutely. Well, it's been brilliant talking to you. And if you need any test readers for your novel, let me know. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
This for till the end of the month at least, but that I'd love to have a look and see what you work.
Absolutely, yeah, not too right.
Brilliant. All right, well, I hope to meet you out in the real world sometime. I'm going to be putting on hopefully a big event at the Auxiliary to officially launch all this and get us all together and have a bit of a party.
So awesome.
Hope to see you in the not too distant